Welcome to Mindfully Integrative Podcast with your host, Dr. Damaris G. Mindfully Integrative is a podcast discussing ways toward mindfully incorporating integrative health into our lives. This podcast will have informative resources, fun topics, interviews, and discussions relatable for today with a true mindful perspective in a mind-body, holistic life approach.
Hi, how are you? This is Damaris Maria Grossman, and this is the Mindfully Integrative Show. And today we have a wonderful mindful chat with Hince. She is a spiritual guide and author, and she has an amazing story that she will share with you, as I say, in the integrative health space that you may find quite interesting and may help you in your health. So thank you so much for being on the show, Anne.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Of course. And if you guys are watching this on video, you'll see in the background, she has these beautiful pictures, as she's just told me she has painted. So she's also a beautiful artist that I need to add in there too. So, Anne, as I tell others on the show and people here, I just always ask kind of what's a fun fact or something that people may not know about you?
Okay, well, by the time I was 16, I had lived in 5 different countries on 4 continents, which was a lot of traveling. And when I was 8 and I was in Hong Kong, I actually went to the same school as Anita Moorjani, who some people might have known from her book, Dying to Be Me.
Dying to Be Me?
Mm-hmm.
You wrote a book about that?
No, that was Anita Moorjani.
You read that book, okay.
Yes. But I found out that she and I went to the same elementary school in Hong Kong.
Wow. Oh, interesting. Did you guys, ever reach out or email or anything like that?
We met at a conference and she had talked about going to school in Hong Kong. So she sat in front of me and I asked her, was it that school? And it was.
Wow. How interesting. Well, Hong Kong, that's not something normal people do on an average. How was it there?
I loved it. We lived in a 20-story block of flats, which was unusual for people who live in the country in California. And I loved the Chinese food. I just loved that food.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. My husband's family is part Chinese, so we on the Cantonese side, so we try to get some when we can. His mom. When they nice. We go to different places. So yes, I like Chinese food. When you go, I didn't realize that there was authentic and non-authentic at some point. I was like, oh, this is really good.
Yes, it is different.
So I am so glad that you were able to take the time today to kind of join in on this show and tell us and the audience a little bit about yourself, kind of where your story kind of came into, transforming your health and your wellness to be better. Because you have a quite interesting story that those would love to know about, and I know you can help them.
Okay, yeah, I encourage you to listen to the end because the end is an interesting part of the story. So I had a lot of trauma growing up, even though I lived in all those different countries. It wasn't great at home. I was actually born with my right foot up against my right shin. So the first 6 weeks of life, I had physical therapy. And then I was handed over for adoption into a new family that just suffered a trauma. And, when we were living in Sierra Leone, when I was 3 or 4 years old, we had a house fire. So I was the one who saw the flames coming in through the ceiling and alerted everyone of that. So that was a trauma. And then when I was 9, as I said, we were living in Hong Kong. And after that school I talked about, I was actually sent to a boarding school in England. And I was sent to a boys' boarding school. I was the first girl boarder at a boys' boarding school.
That's an interesting fact. On top of your story. Oh my.
Yeah.
That must have been so challenging.
It was. I was teased mercilessly for 2 years.
Oh,
goodness. Yes, that was not a good thing. And then in my teenage years, both of my parents became alcoholics. My dad already had anger issues. So I kind of pulled inside of myself. I almost stopped talking because there wasn't any point in sharing my opinion because it was always wrong. So that was part of my teenage years. And then when I was 19, I woke up one morning and found my mother dead on the bathroom floor. She had actually died.
That's a lot. Those are big things. Those are not, we'll have to have you on for just trauma conversation. Just a trauma conversation. Those are huge events.
Yeah.
We'll have to overcome. And that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. And I didn't know what to do about them. I just did the same thing that I always did. I didn't know there was anything else to do. So I just carried on with life. I suppressed it all, repressed it all, and just continued. I had a lot of digestive issues. I did a lot of dietary changes and things in
common.
Yeah.
I literally talk on my podcast and not even podcast, just in general about trauma when it sits, and you'll talk more.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did a lot of dietary changes in my 20s and early 30s, and things would shift for a little while, but never stayed better. They always kind of reverted back. So it wasn't until I was actually in my late 30s and I had what I call a business altercation with a couple of other mothers at school who were really self-confident, like authority figure mothers. And I was not, right? I was very shy and I was very fearful on the inside. And they told me I'd done something wrong. So my mind just went out of control. It just went over and over and over what had happened for days, and I couldn't sleep. And that's when I realized, well, maybe there's something from childhood, because it kind of reminded me of how my dad would say something and I would react.
Right, right.
So it was in that time frame.
Pattern.
Yeah. So it was a little bit after that that I actually went to a doctor's appointment, and he was a holistic physician. And he recognized I was more stressed than I should be. I was a stay-at-home mother with 2 young boys. It shouldn't have been too stressful. But he could see that in me. And he asked me what my stress level was on a 0 through 10. And I said it was an 8. And then he asked me why. And it was that question that made me realize, oh, it's my mother's death 20 years ago now, because the tears were still just under the surface. They hadn't gone anywhere. They were still sitting inside of me. So he used this technique with me called EFT, which is short for emotional freedom technique. It's also called tapping. So he tapped with me for about 15 minutes about my mother's death. And I walked away from the appointment being able to tell the story of her death in my mind without the tears there anymore. And that was the first time that I realized that we store those emotions and those memories physically in our body, and that we can let them go.
That is profound. Just like as we just talked about your story quickly, you've found this technique of tapping, and I have heard of EFT. But what you have done with it and to transform yourself, those are really big, deep wounds.
Yeah, they were. And that was my first inkling of that I could do something about it. So I went home and I learned how to use EFT, right? It was given away for free online by Gary Craig, who developed it. So I went online, learned how to use it. You can learn it in 5 to 10 minutes. It's very simple. In fact, I think that's part of the problem. It's almost deceptively simple. It doesn't seem like it's doing much, but it really is. And I had an example of that. So I wanted to know that it worked. I have an engineering background. I like to know things work before I spend time doing it. So I had a 17-year-old cat at home at the time who needed to have a daily saline shot. And I was so afraid of giving injections. And the first time I gave him one, my hand was shaking almost out of control. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to give him a daily shot. So I tapped about it. I tapped about my hand shaking, about my fear of hurting him, my fear of giving the injection, and all my memories from injections, because I'd had a lot because we lived around the world. And the next day when I gave him the shot, the needle just slid right in, and all the fear that had been in me that previous day had just disappeared. And that's when I realized the freedom is on the other side of that, those emotions. And that's where I wanted to be. Excuse me. So I started using it. So I started using it every day. I started noticing when I was becoming emotional, which in itself is a big step for people. And then I would tap about it. And I found my mind becoming a little more peaceful, but I knew there was more that I could do. So I wrote down every emotional memory I could think of from my childhood and my earlier years, which was several sheets of paper. And I worked through one each night for about an hour to an hour and a half each night until I'd gone through them all, which took quite a few weeks to do. But I found my mind becoming peaceful in a way that I had never experienced before.
That's pretty profound. Did you find that the journaling was just an extension of the EFT?
I wasn't journaling. I just wrote down a list, like a one line, my dad teased me. Right.
Like whatever the pattern or that time that frustrated or feared you.
Right. And then I would tap on it. I would just go through the whole story, the whole memory in my mind, all the emotions, and I would tap through them. And the tapping releases the energy from the nervous system, and it just releases that out of the body. So I found the other thing it does, it kind of opens up the subconscious mind and it expands the awareness. So more memories start to come up, right? Deeper memories. I couldn't remember a lot of my childhood when I started this. And I think a lot of people can't when they've suppressed it. But the memories start to come up as you're ready to look at them. And the awareness expands. So when I started, I wasn't really aware of how I felt at any time, right? Someone asked me, how are you feeling today, Anne? It would always be, I'm fine, because I didn't know. So I started to become aware of actually how I felt in the moment during the day. And then underneath the emotions are a set of physical sensations, right? Because
that is for sure.
Right. So we use a word like sadness or anger or frustration, but what we're really describing is a set of physical sensations or tension, the way we're holding our body, right? Because if we see someone who's angry, we don't need to hear them. We can see it in the way they're holding themselves. So once I became aware of those sensations, I didn't use EFT as much. I could have done, but I didn't. I actually wanted to feel those feelings. So I worked out how to do that. It sounds so simple, right? Of course we can feel our feelings, but it's not as easy.
It definitely is not simple. Anything that you're telling me right now does not sound simple.
So I had to work out how to do it. Yeah. So I had suppressed these feelings, these physical sensations for decades at this point. So they would want to squirm away, right? I could feel this fear sitting in my solar plexus or my stomach area. And if I took a deep breath or if I moved, I couldn't focus on it anymore because it hid from me. So what I realized I had to do was actually hold myself like a statue and stop breathing. So I would just hold myself and feel that fear sitting in my stomach until I needed to take a deep breath. And there would be a shift at that point. That tension would start to release. So then I would think the thought again, feel the fear again, hold on to it. I'd even talk to it. Hello, fear. I can feel you right there in my solar plexus. And I just want to feel you. I want to allow you to exist and to be felt. And then there would be another shift. So I would do it over and over again with the same thought until all the emotion underneath it had dissipated.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. So I started doing, I felt things changing at the time, right? So I just wanted more. So now in the evenings, instead of doing the tapping, I would lay on the sofa and I would bring collective traumas to mind, right? Something like 9/11, because we all have our own experience of a trauma like that.
Yeah.
Right. So I'd bring those thoughts and feelings and memories to mind and feel all those physical sensations and just allow them to be felt. And they would shift. And they would do it again and again and again until there was no longer any physical sensation underneath the thought or the memory. And so that was kind of like the second big step. And then at some point during this process, I noticed I could keep my awareness inside my body after the tension had released. So the only way I can kind of explain this, because I'd never heard about it before, and it was really weird, is imagine you've got a toothache or a stomach ache, right? You can pinpoint where that pain is coming from. But once the pain has gone, you can't really pinpoint it anymore, right? Because the pain's gone. There's nothing calling you to that place anymore. Right. I found that I could keep my awareness inside my body at that point. And so I started to play with it. Well, I've done it once. Can I do it again? Right. And I found that I could. So then, well, what do I do? So I would move my awareness around inside, and I noticed that I could find where there was tension or where there was no tension. So I would focus on a place with tension, and I would do the same thing. I would hold my awareness on it, and I would notice there would be a shift. And then I would do it again and again and again. And over time, and it was many, many months, that I actually was able to put my awareness inside my head. I was kind of moving up my body.
Yeah, it took numerous. This isn't like something that happened overnight. This is time, effort. You're trying to get rid of patterns and your energy. Like, it sounds very in depth, not a small.
But it feels good, right? It feels good to let go of tension that has been stored in the body.
Yeah, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I have plenty of tension that I'm thinking about, and I have some techniques. But hey, I love any new technique for releasing tension is always helpful.
Yeah. So when I actually put my awareness inside my head, I was just blown away by the amount of pain and the forces pulling my bones out of alignment in my head. I had been living for 50 years at this point without any awareness of this pain and tension inside my head. Now, I did have migraines for years, for decades. And I remember being told that I must have a lot of tension in my head, but I had no awareness of it. So at this point, I actually became aware of it. And then now I had a tool to work on it. So I would just hold my awareness on it a little bit at a time. And over time, eventually actually started to hear and feel something release. And it felt
with no like movement or therapy on that end. No,
no, just using the sensing mind, right? Just feeling. And when this thing released, it sounded and felt like old fabric ripping. And at that point, I did some research to say what's happening because it was a little scary. And I realized it was actually an adhesion in the fascia or the connective tissue that was releasing.
Gotcha.
So It wasn't hurting me in any way. I was just releasing inner tension. So I just kept going. And these days it happens like hundreds of times a day. But over time, I could actually feel my bones relax into what I now know is a more aligned position. But I was just releasing the tension. So that's why last year it was great to have the x-rays taken. I had x-rays in 2013 and then last year. And to see that my eye sockets, the bones have shifted. So my eye sockets have aligned and my jaw, which was way off to the side, is now more in the center. And my neck was really very bent. I think I had scoliosis from my foot being up against my shin when I was born. My whole body was twisted. So it's untwisting now. And that's why I think I've grown half an inch as a 55-year-old because of this release of inner tension.
I have definitely have either not just on the show, but have worked and heard of individuals that have done a lot of myofascial release and either physical or energetically. I find it interesting that, so kind of like you're doing your own maintenance. So you have to maintenance, right? You're not just like, all right, that's there. You maintenance yourself on a regular, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going deeper and deeper. At this point, I'm working on inside the bones in my face and the tooth roots. I'm releasing tension deep inside.
Have you on a outside the physical side, have you been doing like, drinking more water, walking more, doing anything different or adding in, or has this mostly been laying on your couch and kind of working through a lot of this?
Yeah, I could do it when I started, I had to be laying on the couch to do it. And when I started, I also had to have my eyes closed, but now I can do it anywhere. I can't do it when I'm talking to someone, obviously, but I can do it when I'm watching TV. I can do it when I'm walking. I can do it pretty much any time.
And do you have to do movement, or you just pretty much kind of stand still?
I pretty much stand still, but when I release enough, my neck will have to adjust yes.
No, that makes sense. I mean, you're not the first person that I've spoken with that has, energetic. Well, I'm also a yogi too. So I'm a big fan of, not a fan, that's not the word. I'm a believer and understanding of, when you think of science, energy is not created or destroyed. So we're trying to process and change. And you've found a way to, I don't necessarily, maybe it is healing is the word, or realigned yourself to be better and healthier.
I believe because I can sense inside, right? I can sense the tension or the no tension, right? And I know it's a release of dis-ease in the body, right? Because
absolutely. Yeah. I talk about that quite often. And the fact that you've had a line of history that you've been able to use for yourself it's pretty profound. What that tells someone maybe listening or understand is that they have the opportunity to change some of their patterns in this.
Absolutely. I mean, so much of life changes, right? It's not, we think of it, intellectually that we're letting go of our past traumas, but there's so many changes that happen. It's an enlightening process, right? We're releasing that burden that we've carried for all these years, and we actually feel lighter, right? It's easier to laugh and smile. We just feel lighter. I remember feeling really heavy as a 20 30-year-old, right, just weighed down by the burdens, which is really just the energy that we stored inside of us. So when we release it, things change on so many levels, and it's fun.
Have you had any other health ailments in addition to the alignment issues, or since you've had more alignment within yourself and in your body, have you found yourself more at ease in any other health issues if ever had occurred previous, like your digestion, those kind of things?
Right. I would say everything has improved, but as you go, right, like I became aware of all that tension in my head. It had been there all along, but I hadn't been aware of it. So as I release more and more, I actually become aware of deeper and deeper levels. Yeah. So yes, things improve, but your awareness gets deeper, and you just become aware of things that you've been actually holding at a deeper level for longer.
Do you find that it has hyper-focused you to be more concerned, or does it just the awareness? It depends, it's kind of a work in progress.
Yeah, less concerned, right? Because I know what I can do about it, and I know it's just stuck energy, right? So when I focus on it, and it's that focusing on it, a lot of us we think we need to think positive or be positive, right? We have that toxic positivity happening these days. What that's doing is actually bypassing or suppressing our actual feelings and our actual thoughts.
Sometimes the feelings suck or they're not great.
Right. But it's actually
not
focusing.
To be negative, but like you're trying the truth. I don't know how you will feel, but when I've gone through a lot of my trauma work, it sucks. It's not fun.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not, it's the dark stuff. The dark stuff brings the lighter stuff, right? Right.
But that's where the healing is. It's fully accepting that dark stuff. That's why for me, having an experience with the cat was so amazing, right? Because I could see, okay, the freedom is over there. It's just stuck energy. And if we can let that darkness go, that stuck energy go, that's where the freedom is.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And have you worked with other people and in addition to yourself to kind of show this technique?
I have worked with a few other people, but I wrote my story down in a book. I wrote all the steps down.
Oh, yes, that's right. You're an author. Can you talk about your what's the name of your book?
It's called A Pathway to Insight.
A Pathway to Insight.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to have that in the show notes for those listening. But before you go, because you have so much and wonderful things to say, and I'll definitely have you on again. 2 parts. So you're artist. Were you an artist before all of this? Or did you through your trauma, did you embrace being an artist?
No, I always was pretty good at art. Yes.
And then did your artistry change throughout the years?
It did. It changed very much. Yes. I used to be a perfectionist. So I used to do very detailed pencil portraits, and they were very detailed, and I was afraid of having any mistake, right? Of having anything wrong. So I would work on it until it was perfect in my mind. And I didn't think anyone could judge it. Right. Mm-hmm. So as I let go of all that emotion around those things, things opened up. I became aware of colors. I started to love colors and feel into colors and not care about the perfectionism anymore. So beautiful. Absolutely.
That's beautiful. That in itself is a tool that someone has to see. You've gone past your imperfections, and that's not even, and then you've grown from that. And now you take your technique beyond for your healing. How, and then would you like to leave the audience with a little mindful tip, as I say? One, of course, they'll reach out to you, 1, to read your book, and 2, to just, contact you. But if you have anything that you'd like to share.
Well, since so much is going on in our world these days, I would love people to realize that, if anything that's happening outside of ourselves, we sometimes don't think there's anything we can do about it, right? That we're not part of it. But anything we're seeing outside of ourselves, our part of it is how we feel about it. Excuse me.
No worries.
So there are emotions, right? There are feelings inside of us. Now, we might not be aware of them to begin with, right? But as you go through this process, you become more aware of them. So even if you're watching the news, right, or you're watching someone outside of you have an argument, anything that you're feeling, you can take control of, right? You can take a deep breath. Even taking a deep breath is going to change you to a more peaceful position. And then you're attracting more peace into your future. And also then if you're watching the news and you're feeling angry or sad about something that's happening, once you've learned EFT, you can just tap about it, right? You can tap as you're watching the news or anything you're feeling about it. But even then, just taking a deep breath as you're watching it is actually going to change the future, your future and our collective future. So I encourage anyone to do that.
That sounds amazing. How, with your actionable steps you have, do you still use EFT a lot in a lot of your techniques, correct?
I still use EFT, yes. And I use feeling the feelings and I use going, yes, I use all of them.
So you take a lot of actionable steps, not just so you bring the awareness and then you take a step forward to change.
Right. Because there's that understanding that it's just stuck energy and it wants to leave. All we have to do is allow it to do that.
Oh, you are so right. Allow it. Allow it. Now, there's a lot of individuals that may be listening right now or watching and they won't allow it to go away.
Yeah, it's
and
scary.
I think that's important for someone to kind of be okay with allowing it to be released and not be stuck anymore.
Right. And that doesn't mean push the energy onto someone else. It doesn't mean if you're feeling angry to be angry with someone else, right? To push that energy out. It just means to feel that anger, right? Allow that anger to be felt inside the body because it's just stuck energy.
Wonderful point. I'm so glad that you were able to share, I know you have a longer story that people can read on your book, and some of your time because you are a beautiful individual. And I think that many of those listening may be like, oh, is this possible? Or maybe this is not something, but I know as a medical person and also an integrative person and trying to see the energy. And as I said, energy is not created or destroyed. This brings up so many different, questions, but it's also very real, releasing a lot of our unstuck things can be profound.
It can. Yeah.
I appreciate you being on the podcast and your time. And thank you. Thank
you. Let me just also mention then I have the YouTube channel someone can go on.
Share. If you have anything else you want to share right now, please do.
Okay. Yeah, I've got some videos on there about the different steps. So there's an example, a demonstration video for EFT and a demonstration video for feeling your feelings and some other parts along the way. So feel free to go on there. And I've also got a public Facebook page that I love explaining things on, and I'm happy to interact with anyone on there.
And your website again is?
It's AnneHince.com, and the x-rays are on there, so you can go and check them out.
AnneHince.com. I'm going to have all the information in the show notes, but I just wanted to make sure those can reach out and hear it too, just in case they're not at their computer right away. All right. Well, you have a wonderful day, and thank you, Mindfully Integrative community and those that are listening. I hope you enjoyed the show, and don't forget to find in your day a mindful way each and every day.
Thank you for listening to the Mindfully Integrative Show with Dr. Damaris Maria Grossman, family nurse practitioner. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not the substitute for professional medical advice, diagnose, or treat. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your healthcare routine. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you enjoyed our show, please support us by leaving a mindful review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite streaming platform. Interested in being a guest or more information? Email us at info@mindfullyintegrative.com. For resources mentioned in the show, visit our website at www.mindfullyintegrative.com. You can also connect mindfully with Dr. Damaris on her social media links found on the site. May your strength and peace guide you to find a mindful way every day. Namaste.